The last power rankings of the season. We will power through these power rankings on our way to our qualification tournament. God, my voice is terrible. Sorry if I sound a little bit like Demi Moore, but my voice has, broken a little bit here. Same rules apply for these power rankings as all other power rankings. This is not a points table. This is looking at what has happened in the last week, what is likely to happen in upcoming games, and, kind of what we know about these teams now over the whole period of a season. Remember that all rankings are completely correct, and it would be absolutely silly for you to argue with any of them in the comments. I've gone for Chennai number 1, even though they've gone 1 or 2 in their last 3 games. They could have easily won that game against Delhi. It also shows that Delhi aren't that far away. I don't know if we're allowed to have equal first ranking, because I haven't really made the rules on this yet. But if we had equal first ranking, I think Delhi and Chennai would probably be equal first at this point. I'm not too worried about the Royals game for Chennai. It's a bit of a throwaway game. But 2 losses in a row, that's noteworthy. And I'm noting it because it's worthy. I think the more interesting thing is that in those 2 losses, they just batted a little bit too slow, didn't they? And it's a Chennai way of doing things. I don't think any of us are that surprised by it. They may have, at times in this season, overcome it just because of their very long batting order, but they did bat a little bit too slow. They probably left a few runs out there against Rajasthan, and in the Delhi game, it came back to bite them a little bit with a couple of slow strike rates, didn't it? But they're going to finish second. They've got a very experienced team. The Sam Curran injury is not quite like the Marcus Stoinis injury for Delhi, in that Sam Curran's not always been in their team, and they do have coverage for him in some ways. I don't think Drake's is going to come in and play. He's not exactly a like for like anyway, but with Hazelwood and Bravo there, and even Ngidi, I suppose, if they need him, I think they have other options there. So Sam Curran doesn't make or break this team, although obviously they'd rather have him available for the finals. So I've got Delhi second, or equal first, if you want to say it that way. They beat Chennai and Mumbai. Both good, strong wins. They did lose to the surging Kolkata. I think they look like a better all-round team now Shreyas Iyer is involved. Just, more whole, more damaging. We still don't know much about Marcus Stoinis' injury, as we haven't been given a proper update from the team. We've had captains and coaches mention it in passing, but we don't really know that much about it at the moment, do we? If he comes back, I think they're a better team. Without him, they might still win the title, but they're not quite at their best. And it also brings us back to the 4th overseas thing. It's actually great that Delhi can play with only 3 overseas players. It means they've done very well with drafting their Indian players. Also means they haven't really done that well with their overseas players. So it's kind of really good and really not quite as good as you think it is. Bangalore barely turned up for their first week back at school, and then they had to play the 3 worst teams in the competition, and they should have gone 3-0. Somehow they managed to lose to the Sunrisers. 2-1, I suppose, is better than nothing at all. But it does mean that they've made second spot, which, because of Chennai's recent form, was attainable. Slightly less attainable. And to lose to the Sunrisers and lose out on the second spot probably means that you, maybe didn't deserve it in the first place? I'm not sure. That seems unfair. But the point is, they probably won't finish second now, and they lost to the Sunrisers. That is the point. That is the 2 points, really. And I'm really starting to believe a little bit more in Harshal Patel. I'm not sure, there won't be many players who'll ever have a season like this again. But the amount of dip that he's getting on reminds me of the great Dwayne Bravo seasons. And the amount of sideways spin reminds me of, maybe someone, not quite Mustafiza, but someone like maybe Ben Lachlan, who occasionally just gets a lot of sideways movement. As long as his fingers and his wrist and his elbow and his shoulder all stay together, and he can continue to put that amount of revs on it, he's always going to be difficult to play. Glenn Maxwell was playing well when they were in India, and he likes the UAE more, and he's certainly playing that way at the moment. So, no surprises there. Maxwell's been so good this season, they haven't really needed much of AB divisions after the break, and that's really good. If I had any concern, it would be the George Garton experiment. It's a lot of pressure on him, still learning his way in the game, hasn't got a lot of experience to suddenly end up in the IPL finals. And I suppose neither is Dan Christian's binary scores. So there's a couple of worries about the overseas players outside of the 2 stars. I thought Kolkata were making a fairly good surge that made them look like title contenders last week. I don't think I quite feel that way about them anymore. They did beat Delhi, which is really good, but I thought they looked a little bit more average in the last week than they did before then. I think it's the Punjab game that really bothered me. That could have ended Punjab's season really right there, and they didn't quite take it. They weren't quite as good as I thought they were going to. They could have really ended a conversation there, and they kind of left the conversation half open. But they beat Delhi, so Varun Chakravarti is really interesting here. I think the way they've used him is different since they got back to the UAE. They're using a lot more seamers up front. But in India, he averages 32 in T20 cricket, And in the UAE, it's 19. That's not just usage, is it? He just likes the UAE more. It's handy because that's where the rest of this tournament will be played. And Owen Morganwatch, just for all you Kolkata fans who are absolutely obsessed with this, rightfully I suppose at this point, he's averaging 11 with the bat and a strike rate of 101. Those are truly extraordinary numbers. Googlies, quarter seamer, carom, dukes, back of the hand, red, leg cutters, teesra, pink, knuckle, white, slider, seed, heavy, bounces, cherry, length, pill, off cutters, old, crimson traveller, kookaburra, hard, outswing, second new, off spin, arm, SG, split finger, shiny, leg spin, soft, new, yorkers, flippers, wrong-uns, long hops, reverse swing, half volley, and third new. These are just some of the names we use for balls in cricket. Well, Manscaped wants you to be as proud of your balls as you are of the ones delivered by your favourite cricketer. Manscaped just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer, 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Insert the code REDINKA at manscaped.com. I've actually used this, not just something that I'm hawking for fun, and I got to admit, I thought it was a bit silly, and then I went down there, and it was exceptional. I honestly feel I could bowl outswing with one nut and inswing with the other. So get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code REDINKA at manscaped.com. Manscaped, for the man who cares about his balls as much as the ones out in the middle. Mumbai beat the teams below them and lost to the team above them. But the two teams below them, I suppose, were pretty much knockout games at that point. So beating them was still a big deal. They were big little games, if that makes sense. And let's not forget, Mumbai was 0-3 before this. So beating anyone at this stage is good. And they've kept themselves in the finals contention. That's also, a very good thing to do. And the Rajasthan win was the first time you thought, well, there's something there. There's still a pulse. There's still, something moving in the Mumbai machine, even if it's been, incredibly rusty. But are the teams above them But I wonder how much the teams above them will really worry if they have to face them in the finals. I mean, Delhi and Chennai probably wouldn't. Would Bangalore? Even Kolkata would have to be thinking at this stage they're as good, if not better, than Mumbai. There's a bit of a loss of the fear factor. Punjab beat Kolkata to keep it interesting, and I think, if nothing else, we should be thankful to them for that. But they did lose to Mumbai, which is an important one, and Bangalore beat them as well. They're just a bit of a one-note team, aren't they? Kind of feels that if KL Rahul doesn't do everything, they're not going to get anywhere. And the problem is that for KL Rahul to do everything, he has to slow down, which takes away his importance. It's kind of painful to watch them, really. I think the Mumbai game hurts because Mumbai came into that just not winning. And this was Punjab's real chance to, do something, and they would have been 2-1, and they weren't that far away from the game. And realistically, it was probably the first time that Pollard and Hardik teamed up to really smash a team around in this tournament. Just terrible timing for Punjab, really. And they're still in it on the points table. Their net run rate isn't horrendous, although it's pretty bad. But their last game's against Chennai, and even with Chennai's recent form, I just can't imagine Chennai are going to continue to play this poorly. It would take quite some effort to beat Chennai. It would take a lot more effort to beat them really, really big. And then you need a lot of luck from other results. I can't see it happening. Rajasthan lost to Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and beat Chennai. What are we supposed to do with that? And the thing is, they weren't that far away from going 2-2. If they just played like cricketers against Sunrisers, they would have got that. They would have split these games 2-2 and given themselves a bit of a chance at the end. But obviously the Mumbai match was... It was bad. It was very bad. Especially when they were going up against a team that they were fighting for a finals position against. And they weren't ever in the game at all. I mean, it's suboptimal. It's very suboptimal. We're at the point now where we're just starting to think, how many Rajasthan players over the last couple of years have been any good? Jofra, Butler, Sanju. Who else are you adding? Who else do you think is a very good player? And that's kind of what we're left with Rajasthan, isn't it? Kind of, what's next? Hyderabad won a game. They won another game. They've won 3 games, which is about where you think they should finish at 3 or 4 wins. They're, as bad as they've been this year. A lot of it's been bad luck and the break and Bairstow not being around and all those sorts of things. They're probably not a 1-win team, or at least they shouldn't have been. And they're not now. None of this really matters that much, but if you're a Hyderabad hardcore fan, I suppose, there's hope, there's light, there's something. Umran Malik, who's not happy to see him play? Any young fast bowler coming through probably might not have got a chance if they were still playing well. Again, they find a good local Indian bowler. It's fun, isn't it? If your team's absolutely stinky up the joint, it's always good to find a young fast bowler coming through, I would think. There were times in the field for the Bangalore game where it just looked a very last day at school vibes. They were just kind of like, it doesn't matter, man. Kane Williamson was just sort of shrugging and laughing. They reviewed something because Jason Holder was bored. And it does make you think a little bit. There's no benefits for coming last. You just sort of come last. If you can't qualify, there's almost nothing left. You're not going to get relegated like a football league, and you're not going to get draft picks like another league. So you're just sort of stuck in this no man's land. And I wonder if maybe there should be something. Maybe you get extra right to matches, or some sort of benefits at the auction somehow. A salary cap boost, any of these sorts of things. But as it currently stands, we're just, waiting for the Sunrisers to finish. But there it is, the last power rankings before the finals. Take them, devour them. Obviously, you're going to agree with them. So just let me know in the comments how much you agree with them. Like, on a scale of 0 to 10, is it a 9 or a 10?